A warm welcome back to the channel. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. In today's recap, there's focus on two stories in the United States, and also an airline that is battling the grounding of aircraft and navigating a turbulent recovery. That's where I'd like to begin, with Vietnam Airlines continuing their own efforts to recover from the pandemic. They've actually stated, in fact, that they're maintaining strong levels of recovery right across the group. While the airline is very much wary of the difficult operating environment that presents itself, which has seen many challenges brought on to them thanks to emerging conflict, inflation, and more, it says it's navigating all of these cautiously. Vietnam Airlines also highlights explicitly the tensions in the likes of Israel and the ongoing war in Ukraine, which has further disrupted supply chains. But it's important to know that supply chains were already affected. However, that hurt has increased tenfold because of the aforementioned conflicts. This means that key expenses such as fuel, among much more, have all risen, which has made it hard to forecast your actual operating expenses and navigate the challenges related to these. Other global airlines have seen their operating expenses rise, typically led by the dramatically increasing staff wages, this being following amended contracts. Vietnam Airlines is also facing some difficulties within its fleet of Airbus aircraft, as Pratt & Whitney continues to have their engine troubles that has made an impact to airlines right around the world. It's not one location. Pretty much everyone that has these GTFs are feeling the effects, and as a result, operating plans, including prospective network expansion utilizing these more efficient jets, can't occur at the optimal rate. The Vietnamese-based carrier knows that it needs to meet financial goals to continue its long-term recovery. This will be done through the implementation of key initiatives to raise its revenues. Furthermore, the airline is putting a great deal of focus on resource utilization. If the company is able to optimize its utilization and continue to efficiently manage its assets, it should be able to improve its overall business, which would run down to seeing greater financial results, or frankly results that would put less of a burden on the business. And while these things are all essential for any airline, of course in the situation of Vietnam Airlines, they're probably putting a larger focus on these elements. Meanwhile, Dan Viet reported that Vietnam Airlines has been struggling with its A320neo family fleet because of those Pratt & Whitney difficulties. And as a result of all of this, they're now looking to sell aircraft later than expected, these being A321ceo jets. The decision comes as it requires these aircraft to be present longer to maintain a high service standard, which they don't feel they can do with their current narrow-body fleet being so damaged. The expectation at least is that by 2025, things should slowly but surely improve. And because of these groundings, we've seen Vietnam Airlines cut routes that have been deemed not effective for the business model, and they've put a focus more than ever on profitability. Coverage now shifts over to American Airlines, where the Association of Professional Flight Attendants, or APFA, which represents 28,000 American Airlines flight attendants, has provided us with a little bit of an update. The union has worked tirelessly with American Airlines to basically reach a common objective: to improve pay and working conditions. However, after another round of talks, the unions stated that an agreement was not possible. Worse still, for an airline perspective, because they weren't able to reach an agreement, prospective strike action now looms, as the union confirms that they're closer to pushing forward with this action to really obtain the conditions that they want to be met, this being a last resort. American Airlines, however, has come out publicly and said that they believe an agreement is within reach. However, it will require some further negotiating, which they add they're excited to schedule and begin, and hopefully move forward in a positive manner. This being a very PR type of response. Flight attendants cannot conduct strike action for the moment until they are given explicit permission from the National Mediation Board, or NMB. The NMB has also been involved in talks between the pair that have stretched over a year. Ultimately, it is difficult to take the next step in bargaining tactics because of some pretty harsh restrictions on strike action to be undertaken by flight attendants. But we know all too well this is, like I said, the last resort to try and seek better conditions. If flight attendants can secure the terms they want, this would actually represent the first pay rise in over 5 years. And as we know, with inflation rising and the cost of living getting out of control in response to that, flight attendants wouldn't be the first party in the industry to be seeking better compensation for their work. American Airlines remains one of the last carriers to now be unable to agree a pay rise within the industry over such a key area. Many leading airlines have formally agreed to pay rises for their employees following strike action over the last 18 months, and it has undoubtedly been a bit of a domino effect, with one airline's group of employees seeking better pay, followed by the next, or potentially within a company, another division also seeking pay, represented by a different union. Like I said, whether it's been a North American-based company or in Europe, we've seen pay rises for roles such as baggage handlers, the aforementioned cabin crew, engineers, and so many other spots. Furthermore, analysts have always argued that these roles were underpaid in relation to their importance and workload, and that was definitely highlighted as we came out of the global pandemic. You may recall that airlines slashed their workforce during the pandemic in response to cost-cutting measures that needed to be implemented, and when demand was restored, well, they couldn't hire quickly enough alongside those with enough experience, and as a result, your existing workforce were forced to basically work themselves into the ground to cope with the unfavorable conditions, in most cases working the job of multiple people all by themselves. And I don't think it's far-fetched to imagine that potentially people watching this video were some of those people that were working overtime, running themselves into the ground, and they've been seeking better pay. And if contracts can't be secured after much discussion, which remember the union and American Airlines have been working on this for some time, well then strikes, as I've stated a couple of times, are seen as the last resort. Over to the last story, and Allegiant will formally close its crew base located in Austin following reporting from Aero Crew News, just years after launching it. The ultra low-cost carrier's closure is expected to come into effect January 7 of 2025. This obviously gives some time to work out the logistics and planning. Allegiant opened the base in Austin in November 2021, with the company revealing it would not only invest USD 75 million into the base, but it would provide 89 high-wage paying jobs at the American airport. Furthermore, they said they wanted to base 3 A320 aircraft, really focusing on linking people to world-class leisure destinations. Allegiant actually operates out of the South Terminal, however this will no longer be the case in the coming years, not just because they're removing their crew base, but because the airport is attempting to improve its land by removing this South Terminal and modernizing its efficiencies with a new concourse. The last few years for Allegiant have certainly had their challenges, most notably they're currently battling 737 MAX delays, and because of these delays, which have also ballooned out, it's led them to need to cut routes and obviously review their operating schedule. They've needed to optimize this as best as possible to cope. That's going to conclude today's aviation news recap. Thank you very much for your support here on the channel. As always, if you have any thoughts, you're more than welcome to drop them down below in the comments. Take care, be safe, and I'll see you same place, same time tomorrow for another aviation news recap.
And we'll fly.